Okay, now, I think we're ready to have the public hearing on limited site plan approval for Regis, some modifications to the plan submitted for the campus improvements. Is that this entire array in the background? Okay. You guys can come up if you want. Sure.
Just remind me of being in class. They won't sit in the front. We're going to hide in the back of the class.
Good evening.
Hi, Tom.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you for helping us out with tonight. This, I guess, is an amendment for the certificate of action that was originally issued about a year ago. At the time, we had talked about advancing plans for some renovations to the entrance of our library. And we've got some renovations to add a few parking spots, a roadway that eliminates sort of a dead-end turnaround that I think the fire department prefers, that connects the back of the Maria Hall directly to the road without having to stop and turn around. And we're now showing a little bit of irrigation up in that corridor. When we were here originally, we were not planning to add any irrigation, but after we had some further consideration, so we get away with not irrigating the entire campus because we cut it at about 6 inches. But that area that we're removing the parking lot and replacing with grass doesn't have much higher traffic and it won't likely be able to remain at 6 inches. So we show now a little bit of irrigation. But with that, I'd like to sort of turn it over to Guy Sasaki here with us, as well as some other folks if we need them. But Peter Hedlund, we've had here before, and I'll turn it over to Peter.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, so we'll sort of do this two at a time, and just to orient people to good to see everybody again, just to orient people to the campus, Wellesley Street out here, Regis College, athletic fields up here, the heart of campus, College Hall, the central core with parking and the areas that we talked about almost not quite a year ago, last July. So here's a detailed view of the core of campus. Is just existing conditions to orient everybody. Can everybody see this over there?
Yes.
All right. So College Hall, Maria Hall, with the addition that we talked about last time, the library, we'll talk about that today, the central parking areas that are going to be removed, the Student Union, St. Joseph's Hall up there. Okay, so the proposed site design, and we're here before you because there have been some changes to our limited, to our last plan, and sorry, we had an easel issue here. And so this is the proposed plan, and College Hall here. This is Maria Hall with the addition, which we were before you last year, in the central quad here, central quad replacing that parking area, the library here. So we're here for two reasons essentially. The first is for an architectural minor renovation and new entry to the library, and we'll show you some specific information about that. When we were here last year, it wasn't sure if there would be funding available for that project or what the extent of that renovation or entry might be. So I'd like to update you on that. And also, two changes have been made to the circulation and parking from our last plan. They're circled here in red. The earlier plan, which we could show you, Steve, I think you can find that over there. I think it should be back there. Had a drop-off sort of terminus here for this roadway. And after talking to the fire marshal, after talking to Regis College, there was a desire to eliminate that dead end. So here was the earlier plan where we were last year. We had this roundabout drop-off adjacent to the library, between the library and Domitilla and Maria Hall, which essentially ended that roadway loop. And Fire department wasn't thrilled about that. We did make it accessible with widening the pathways through here, and the college saw that a lot of people would be perhaps circulating back through the whole rest of campus here. So we have, you can see the change right here. We've continued this roadway through. We've eliminated that circular drop-off, which is here. Continued this roadway through to connect up to the existing. It's a very sharp turn behind the old State House at Regis College. So we smoothed out that sharp turn a little bit here and made the through movement coming this way, and the road that comes up on the south side of the estate will now terminate there. So this is one of the changes there. The second change is to add parking. Right now there's a real crunch on parking on campus. There's a series of transportation initiatives that the college has done, but still a lot of students do drive, and they tend to park wherever they can, on the sides of roads and fire lanes, on the lawn, those types of things. So in order to alleviate some of that, we've taken the existing roadway, which is over here. There's already head-in parking on a portion of that roadway, and we've added parking on the other side of that roadway. So we've added parking along that far side of that existing roadway. And in two other areas here, we've formalized some of the parking to allow more parking for visitors at the very front of campus, and continued the parking lot here, which currently ends, and added a handful of spaces there. I think about eight spaces there. So the difference in parking, the last time we were at our last approval was for a total increase of 25 spaces. We've added 43 spaces to that. So there's an additional 43 formalized parking spaces on campus with the additions here. So a couple more drawings to show for everybody. So for parking, proposed circulation, this is what the proposed circulation will be now. No changes to anything else except this is the new roadway connector through here behind the library. Also, the blue segment here will be one way, and the desire was to make the cars that would be in this area only able to exit either out on this south entry here, or they could also exit back at the formal entry there. So that's the overall changes to the campus circulation, and the purpose of that was to eliminate the dead end at Untitled Hall that we showed you before, and then to create this one-way circulation connector to facilitate the flow of traffic and vehicles that are leaving campus, so they can exit this way or this way, as opposed to having to travel all the way back to the Okay. Other things. So if we zoom into the library, that's the architectural change we're here for is the library. So this is the existing library. We'll talk about some of the site changes to the front of that, and then the specific building changes for the renovation of that building. So the renovations which Katja will talk about are here in the front entry and a new vestibule entrance to the library. Right now the entry to the library faces this way, so it faces away from the heart of campus. And what we're trying to do with the new removal of parking, this is all currently parking here on the core of campus, is to put more students here, make it more active, and as part of that, orient the library to this new center of campus with the plaza. This is just as it was at our last approval. This is the end of the Maria Hall addition. So we've modified the entrance to the library here to allow for a stepped connection to the library here, and also an ADA accessible walk. Currently the library is not ADA accessible, and so from the main entry, and so this accessible walk under 5% would allow both handicapped or other users to enter at the main entry that everybody has at the same entrance where the rest of campus is entering. Here we're tying in existing walkways. So a view of what that looks like is upcoming.
So here there are existing conditions at the library, and what we see on the top, this is the area that Peter has just shown. That's the existing storefront where we are putting new opening. This is existing entrance that we are closing and using this space for the new coffee shop. So this area here that we are adding new vestibule is going to happen here in front of this storefront. So if we just imagine this is the existing, and this is something that we will see in future where we add a new vestibule and stairs, looking back to the new plot where existing parking is. So the floor plan is going to look like this. So here we have a vestibule, entrance, and in the area here, these are those two columns that we are closing, enclosing in a space, and we'll have some seating here, and the library patrons can have a coffee in this shop. So everything else in the library stays the same, waiting for the better times when they have more money and go with further renovations.
The last illustration over here
Lighting plan?
talks about site lighting. Yep. So. Okay, so this is the proposed site lighting plan compared to where we were a year ago. So this is, well, not quite a year ago, last July. So this was the approved plan from last July, and we spent a fair amount of time thinking through the lighting and taking off the wall packs and that type of thing. At that time, this is the library, College Hall, the new pedestrian walkway we're putting through here, the two new quads, this is the addition to the building. So the changes are predicated by those two vehicular changes, increase in parking and eliminating this drop-off. So we're getting rid of that drop-off and continuing that roadway coming through. So here, you can see those changes by bringing the roadway through. So there is an additional 1, 2, 3 pedestrian lights, which will be that same approved decorative fixture which the campus has selected to be able to match the historic quality of the campus. Along the far edge here, there is an increase, which is this far edge here. There's one new vehicular light and one new pedestrian light to be able to handle some of the parking there. There's also a drop-off. The earlier plan had a shuttle bus drop-off or loaded here. That shifted down a little bit and is now, because we can't turn cars around, we don't want to turn cars around and bring them back. It's on the right-hand side of the road, so we have a pedestrian light and one new vehicular light as part of the lighting. So the changes for lighting are one new vehicular light, one new pedestrian light. There are 3 new pedestrian lights there, and actually there's these 4 pedestrian lights here get just redistributed along this part of the roadway, and we have one new pedestrian light in front of the existing residence hall. We have
plus 4 more in front of whatever the main building is there.
in front of the library or
No,
College
Hall.
Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, so, and this was a recent update, so there are 4 existing lights there, and because we're doing this work, we're proposing to replace those existing 1960s version with the new LED efficient standard. And Dee Schweppe, who you remember as our lighting consultant last year, is here as well for any specific lighting questions. So that's all the material we have for you today. Happy to pull anything up and answer any questions.
I have a question. Sure. So you're removing quite a few parking spaces by converting parking lots into those quads.
That's right.
And then you said you're adding 42 spaces, which I assume doesn't include the lot next to the Postal Museum.
That's right, yeah.
So if you count all the spaces you're adding, including the ones at the Postal Museum, and you subtract
Yep.
the spaces that were at the $2.5 million, what's the net?
68.
68
Yeah.
additional.
68 additional, that's right. So as of last July, the net add was plus 25. And on top of that, we've added, we're coming back to you today to discuss our proposed changes that add another 43 on top of that. So the total increase in parking is 68.
The issue is when the traffic increase associated with those cars would actually have a noticeable impact on the street traffic pattern. When we were looking at a net 25 car increase, negligible. Especially since I think what we talked about then was that the commuting times would not overlap with rush hour, particularly because you were scheduling the classes in non-rush hour times, and I assume that's still the case.
That is correct.
And so the additional, 40 or so cars in non-rush hour times would probably also still come under the negligible.
I don't think that we're adding, and it's probably negligible, I don't think we're adding any traffic, because what we're doing is we're getting people to stop parking. It's to deal with the existing parking. It's get them to stop parking on the fire lanes and the roadways, to stop parking on the Great Lawn, so that we can, get the cars off of there.
What
and
you're
get
saying
them
is
on
you're
pavement.
increasing spaces but not cars.
Correct. We have, the enrollment isn't growing. We have, in the fall for the undergraduates, we have about 940 total students. This coming fall, we'll have about 930, it's relatively the same number. Our plans have always been to get to be no more than 1,000 total undergrads. It's not, we're not adding a volume of cars, that's not what the parking's for. It's to get people out of the roadways, off the lawn, and, away from the fire hydrants and that type of thing.
Yeah, when we were out on the sidewalk, I think one thing we all noticed is that if you're not there by 9 o'clock, you don't have a place to park.
Tuesdays and Thursdays particularly.
We were there on Tuesday morning, and by 9 o'clock, there was what we encountered was students going back and around, trying to find a place to park.
Yeah.
So I think that there is. I think what you just said about increasing parking spaces and not traffic is probably exactly right. There aren't enough places to park cars now.
That's correct. And we put some measures in place. We restricted freshmen, resident students cannot bring cars on campus. That's a new policy that's been in place. But it's not, we're at a volume that I think we're going to be at for a long time, not forever. But it's just, there aren't enough current spaces right now.
Do these changes involve any landscape changes?
They do, to a certain extent. The landscape changes are as following. There's the irrigation that Tom mentioned earlier. That in the plan last July, there was a specific question, and there was no plan to irrigate. And further discussions with the college. This will be their version of the collegiate campus quad. So the thought was that if we could put irrigation in, it would really help. So this area here would be irrigated. That's one landscape change. This second landscape change is really associated with the parking and roadway changes that we talked about. So there will be a couple trees removed for the extension of those roadways. We saw that out on the sidewalk the other day. There's a little bit more green space here, and this quad gets a little bigger because this was a sort of larger parking area that was taking up this space, so the lawn gets pushed down that way a little bit there. And the extension of the parking there, and there's some, we've been very careful with the grading, but there's some minor grading used to tie these roads in. So that's and then the lighting changes, which we mentioned.
new plantings besides grass?
Yeah.
No new trees, no new shrubs?
And we had one tree actually right there as part of the, because we thought it was a good idea.
Okay.
You know, in the past, we usually make a little bit of a deal about irrigation.
Yeah.
Not being MWRA water, and mostly because we hate to bring other water into our town,
Yeah.
dump it into our system,
Yeah.
into our water table, so I don't know. And of course, the trouble is you're dealing with Western residents, and they let their sprinklers one day and night. I'm not
Well, I
sure.
can assure you, I'm not paying one extra gallon of water.
That's what I was thinking, that you might be a little bit more interested in watching your water bill.
But
And it's kind of a shaded area, I don't know if it's gonna take an awful lot of irrigation.
It's true, we don't typically, if there's a, for private residences,
We make them take a
we
while.
make them dig a well. Because
You can usually hit
there's
groundwater.
a tremendous water problem in Weston. It's an imported water problem.
Right.
So it's, you know, it's got impacts all over town, you know. Places are flooding that never flooded before, and,
So I guess it's not much consideration, but the water that we bring into the campus goes back out, of course, to the sewer connection, so we're not, you know, at least.
Well, but that's for the piped,
Charging.
contained water. We're talking about, you know, free water thrown into the environment and sort of filters down. But that said, I can't imagine if you're just doing this one little quad area, I don't know how many square feet that is, but it can't be that big.
It's a little over an acre, so.
yeah, but at some point, I mean,
I mean, if it was the entire school.
if that expands, we're gonna,
Right.
we should put you on notice that you're
Yeah,
gonna.
There's no intention to add sprinklers or irrigation anywhere other than that area. You know, we water the softball field and the Astor field, and this should be the last area. We've never watered the front, the main lawn. We've never had a need to. It's always stayed green in the brutal summers. There's no way we can cut it. We don't think that we can apply that technique to this small section.
That was my only concern otherwise. I mean, it looks great, you know, and I actually think that doing a one-way road rather than having everybody have to cycle out through entrance one, it just will maybe decrease the congestion all along that road, maybe spread it out a little bit, so it's nice.
Yeah. Dave, you said you'd taken a look at the runoff change. It's not very big, right?
Now, you're doing porous pavement for a lot of the increase. So from the July proposal, they had a pretty big decent decrease in impervious. This brings it up, but not past to where they were a year ago. So
Yeah.
there's no need. I mean, you know, the porous pavement's pretty is a mitigation. You know, but no need for like infiltration or detention or anything like that.
What? Just out of curiosity, what's the porous pavement? Which one are you using?
The porous
Asphalt.
porous asphalt pavement, underlaid with filtering porous and then reservoir porous, about 2 foot total.
Yeah.
Stone and asphalt.
And that doesn't require maintenance thing.
Well, it requires some,
Especially cleaned with acid or anything
vacuum
like that.
sweeping periodically. It's actually an operation maintenance plan.
Clogs up.
But
You'll-
it doesn't require cleaning sumps in the catch basin, so it's sort of,
Right.
trade off.
Next winter, when it's like this, go up and you'll see that it's kind of weird too. Is it sheds the snow, so you don't have to plow as much.
It's icy.
Really?
It's icy, yeah. Because you have areas where it'll be butt up against existing pavement, so you see it.
Yeah.
You'll see the contrast.
And it doesn't move. I mean, I'm just looking about myself, you know, in my stone driveway. All the stones move off every winter.
In the lower traffic areas, the two areas we're planning to use it are, one that's cut off in this land here, but the parking area behind Untitled, which is the dead end parking area, we're using it there, and then the parking area we were discussing last year, which is the Spellman parking
Yeah.
area, which is the sort of open
It's the
spot.
Spellman parking.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have that elsewhere in the town?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but not on a large scale.
Yeah.
Residential,
Yeah.
some residential projects,
Yeah.
and not a lot of them, but a few.
In my town in Arlington, they had a public works project. For a park area, they had a couple different types of pervious pavement, and they kind of made it had some information sessions about it for people who are interested in town, and people come over. And the Spellman lot is close enough to to the public that might be something the college is looking for. Once it's in there and working, it can be. If you get the next question through, it's like, well, what does this stuff look like? You can place where you go check it out.
Pretty underwhelming, looks up, Dave.
Pretty underwhelming.
Yeah.
And it doesn't move when it's plowed. And
Yeah,
what's
it
the cost
looks
comparison?
just like Dave.
To a regular.
I've had a lot that's got 3,000 cars parked on it every day, and it's the crumpiest 3,000 people you ever meet in the entire life. It's the IRS, and they
Especially if it's
it doesn't. It's just pavement.
Is it a lot more expensive?
And cost is
Yeah.
comparable?
It's just, well, no. It's that 2 feet that Steve described. That's where the cost is. Like the
Right.
the
Okay.
pavement piece
Yeah.
isn't really, it's comparable,
Yeah.
but it's the
Right.
2 feet that
Yeah,
you're
but
going to put
if you're
under.
installing a stone driveway, you have to do this
It's
huge
the extra
excavation,
drain, yeah.
and all the drainage into that too.
And you save, if you are eliminating the need for catch basins and underground pipes, then you're saving that money
Yes.
as well. So that's the argument that you make.
You got to add all that in.
But it's only impressive if you go out there with a garden hose and then the water just goes right through it. That's the thing that's interesting.
I'm impressed about the snow.
Yeah, I didn't believe that until it happened. Like I like the sales guys always like everything. It does solves all problems. But then, like the first winter we were out there, we're like, no snow on.
Yeah, Ron Gemma pushes this stuff hard. He really believes in it.
Yeah, it's nice. It's just regular pavement. It's not.
But it doesn't have to be sealed, how they have that seal scan all the time. Like every 3 years you need your continuous driving. Great,
So
anyway.
what is the cost differential when you take into account these hazards?
We were told, when we did our own estimate, it came out very similar in cost. We originally had underground detention. Instead of taking out underground detention structures, the catch basin and the water quality treatment, to go into port paving was comparable. And actually, the construction manager has verified that with their price estimates. They seem to think the same. We wouldn't see much savings going back to conventional system.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Because you have to deal with the water in some fashion. So in certain areas, if a larger open area, you can use an open retention basin or something like that. In areas you don't have that, an underground system is more expensive. So.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments from the anyone? Good. All right. I think we're all set. We'll close the hearing and review the decision at some point.
I wouldn't close the hearing. I
Close
mean, you're
it?
not going to accept any more testimony, but with 7.5 hours and all the stuff, I don't know unless someone's going to write this.
All right. We'll continue the hearing. All right.
First step, I assume it would be an amendment to the decision that's already been issued, or would it be?
How do you hold on to it?
I think that's the way to do it. It's an amendment.
And just a quick question.
Sure.
The plans that you've shown tonight, are those the plans that you submitted to Joe? No changes?
This are color renderings of the plans we'd submitted previously.
Okay.
So they're,
No date
what we
changes.
submitted are not the colored plans you see here.
Yeah.
But the same one as previously.
Is this will be your second amendment? Wasn't there?
That's the one. That's right.
So it might be helpful if you take the first amendment, compare it to the original decision, and maybe do a little bit of the administrative piece of doing a draft for the second amendment.
Draft. Would you like us to work at the first draft?
That works for me.
Yeah.
We could at least update other revision dates.
We should just
stuff like that.
tell you that Susan is here only temporarily to bridge the time before we bring a new permanent planner on board. So her time is limited, and she's only able to work at it one day a week. So that's why one of the reasons why we're continuing the hearing, so that it gives somebody a chance to get this together and then we can read the decision. And my guess is we're continuing to some date in April. April the I don't know.
The first to the 15th?
The first of the 15th.
So one of the concerns that we have, of course, is we're planning with Fall as well to start construction by the week after commencement, so sometime on the 20th of May. So we were hoping to be able to apply for building permits by April 1, so that we would have enough time to get the permits issued and all of that.
That's not going to give you sufficient time to review it unless they can get something into you by next week, or by the 18th, which is your next meeting.
We can do that.
Is the board comfortable?
I am, if that's possible. Okay, so we'll continue to the 18th. And then if it doesn't come together, we'll just continue to the 1st.
Okay.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Great, okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
How'd you enjoy that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So you.
Okay, so